Harry says quitting your job can be good for your mental health. Beyond the obviously tone-deaf statement from the world's most privileged ginger, there's an urgent warning of how dangerous can this be for so many people. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and it will be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. Now, let's be clear about something. There are toxic workplaces that can be hell on earth for your mental, physical, and even spiritual health. In those cases, you have to face the decision between staying at a job that is definitely destroying you or facing having no job for who knows how long in economies that, no matter which country you live in, have been seriously hit in the past couple years. That's a very real and natural fear. Fear of not being able to provide for yourself and your family. There's not a formal fear chart to compare this very present concern to the fear of flashes and camera clicks, but something tells me that if you have dark sunglasses and earplugs, you'll be fine in these circumstances. So the main problem here is that even if I'm sure that most people is not going to take Harry seriously, they're going to give it a thought. Because it's the most natural thing in the world to wonder if what you are doing for a living is actually hurting your odds of actually living life. And the problem is that I first mentioned really extreme scenarios of toxic workplaces, where the people are absolutely conscious and aware of the risks of staying there. Just like working at Frogmore Cottage and having to stand the Duchess' requests about why doesn't she have a turquoise yoga mat. For example, when you suffer open and direct bullying, discrimination, and any other form of power dynamics that tries to undermine both your sense of self-worth and even your humanity. But even if there is no shortage of this kind of super toxic workplaces, they are not the most common. Because the most common are the ones that include passive-aggressive narcissists that are really hard to unmask. But before I get into that topic and how you identify those kind of personalities and workplaces, there's one much needed distinction that we have to make. A distinction that will make all the difference in the world, no matter if you're working at your dream job or, on the contrary, is a real threat to your mental health. And that is job performance versus self-worth. Now, there's something that happens all the time for most human beings. The profession or career that we choose and the amount of energy that we invest to become what we chose ends up conditioning the way we look and define ourselves. In fact, it's not uncommon that when you ask a person about themselves, one of the most important topics that will spark naturally is what they do for a living, and that's fine. The problem is that in a hyper-specialized society, most probably you're going to express it in terms of the career you chose. For example, I am a lawyer, or I am an engineer, or I am a failed Hollywood actress, that sort of definitions. But if we take the example of I am an engineer, you'll notice that people are talking about the career like the career is themselves, like the career is part of their personality, part of themselves as humans. And that's not their fault, that's how the economy of language works. Oh, I dedicate myself to engineering projects for a living. No. You're gonna say, I am an engineer. But what is exactly the problem with this? Well, as long as the person finds a satisfactory way to apply their experience on what they are good at, in this case, an engineer, as long as an engineer can work in an engineering position that brings them satisfaction, there will be no issues. And this is the point that we have to really distinguish between job performance or being efficient in your industry and your own self-worth as a person. You have to constantly and intentionally separate them. You are not your job, you are not your career, you are not your profession, you are not even your own professional experience. And this is extremely important for your mental health, just for the reason that if someday you make a mistake, or you're a lawyer and lose a case, or you're a doctor and lose a patient, or you're a salesman and lose a very big sale, you're going to feel bad because you're not only going to see it as a professional failure, but also as a personal failure. If you are a lawyer and you lost a case, then your sense of self-worth as a person is going to drop. Your professional failure is going to infect how you perceive your own personal value. And what's even more dangerous about this is how much are you identified with your profession. If you lock yourself inside the concept of your career, and your career begins to slowly be phased out just by changes over times, you might have the notion that it includes your self-worth as a person. That your self-worth as a person is slowly eroding together with your value in the professional market. And that's why the very act of quitting a job could be perceived as, hey, I'm being weak, or if I were strong enough, I could handle this, or if I quit, I failed, or maybe the recurring thought that I am a failure. 4 words that, most probably, Meghan's public relations agents think about at least once a week. But that is the main problem. The person will be talking about the decision of quitting their job as something that undermines their self-worth. And this is very important to understand. Your self-worth comes from the constant exercise of your own values and principles, not from your professional output. Your professional output measures your market value, something external, and doesn't have anything to do with your self-worth, something internal. Keep that in mind because now we're going to solve the narcissist thing. I made a stop talking about how your self-worth can be lost in your job, in what you do for a living, because that's the first thing any passive-aggressive narcissist will do to try to control you. And these are one of the most dangerous narcissists just for the reason that they are really hard to spot. They will not openly bully you, but instead try to control you with strategies like guilt tripping. Out of the top of my mind, I can come up with a sentence like, "It's a shame that you didn't get the report on time. You used to be so much better than this. It would be really hard me if I had to let you go." Again, toxic workplaces could be as toxic as paper cuts. 1 or 2 are not going to kill you, but 10 a day for a couple years really is going to wear away your self-confidence. That's why it's so important to separate your self-worth that has nothing to do with external factors, separate from your professional performance. Because the only way to recognize that your workplace is slowly killing you is being able to spot these toxic personalities. And you will not be able to spot them if you let them negate your worth as a human being. And some people can be really good at that. What's more, separating your self-worth from your profession and your career is going to make it much easier for you in case that you have to make a career pivot or an industry change. No, it's not as easy as quitting your job for your mental health, because if you don't recognize what is hurting you in the first place, most probably you're going to repeat the same pattern again. And this is always a people problem. If you can't spot your current narcissist, you won't be able to spot them in your next job either. I've got a playlist in my channel about narcissists that can help you learn about these toxic personalities. And Harry, you say that quitting a job can be good for your mental health. But you know what? Sometimes getting a job does wonders for your sanity. Make of that what you will. If you want to refine your observation skills, all you have to do is download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas and it will always be a pleasure, my body language buddies. Much love and bliss.